The work is everything, and so we got to suffer together before we can win together.
Do you feel like they're as receptive to those type of relationships, or do you feel like they just want to be coached?
You can't coach them without the relationship. Before we could just coach them and just keep it moving.
Yeah.
But now I think you just can't coach without a relationship and grow. It's just a mentality that we are, men of action. We hope to be men of action. We hope to treat people with character, do things the right way. Hey, how you doing? You doing all right? Good. So we hope to do that, practice at Riverside, and we sort of got a feel for it. My whole family went to Hillside. I was in the Broadden district. I liked engineering. At least I thought I did, right? Yeah. The sound of it was what drew it to me, building stuff. And so I was like, oh, why don't I just try this school? But I think we played a lot of basketball, so we were a little bit more skilled.
I've probably only gone fishing twice in my lifetime. However, I know a lot of people who fish. Over the years, I've interviewed hundreds of successful black men. Many times I walked away from a particular conversation and thought, it's a shame that more people don't know about you. If we don't tell our stories, then they'll never be told. Much like the fishermen I spoke about earlier, we want to tell everybody about the successes of black men. The fishermen never tell how hard it is to get to that great fishing spot. And usually there are hills, uncut weeds, rocks, snakes, fallen trees, dark places, and other hazards.
Calls me N-word, calls me all these things, dare me to say
Many young
something.
men, boys even, find difficulty in obtaining success because oftentimes those they consider successful haven't been given the opportunity to detail their winding paths to success.
I got so much more in me that I can offer.
Goin Fishing is designed to allow successful black men to tell their success stories. We know in just telling the stories, we inspire others. So grab your pole. We goin fishing.
Man, life for me started around, and they always say, you're from wherever your grandma house is. I was from Old North Durham, I would say that. So I grew up on West Corporation Street, right across from the Durham Bulls Stadium right there. Most of my life was based around Central and Hillside. I grew up, I was over there a lot. Then I grew up on Cecil Street, and then I was on Formosa, for a while. My uncle was the football coach at Hillside, Coach Lilly. So we spent a lot of our time over there growing up. So yeah, so I always say that. Everybody asks me, I'm like, nah, I'm from Old North Durham. That's where Grandma's house was. That's home base. You know what I'm saying? So.
What are some of your earliest memories of basketball in Durham?
Really, it started with Hillside. I can remember going to see T-Top play. I could just remember, it being a really big crowd in there. And so we were kind of getting the games there. And then for me, everything started at WD Hill. I think that's where mostly everybody starts in the city. It's WD Hill. Then when I was with you, it was Campus Hill. Then we were over there.
First introduced you to the game?
My cousin introduced me to the game. I had a cousin, Barry. I have a cousin, Barry, and he was about 3 or 4 years older than me. And so I would just follow him around. He was like the big brother, in that family. And so he would just take me out in the street and just teach me how to play. We go down Gregson and go to this court on that one way going back into the city, and we would just play basketball there. And that's he just introduced it to me. And then from there, I just started watching Carolina. I started watching Duke on TV, and that's how I got inspired that way, and that's really where it sort of took off for me. Okay.
So what role did Riverside High School play in your life growing up?
So I went to Broadden, and we had came over to a practice at Riverside, and we sort of got a feel for it. my whole family went to Hillside. But I was in Broadden District. I liked engineering. At least I thought I did, right?
Yeah.
The sound of it was what drew it to me, building stuff. And so I was like, oh, why don't I just try this school? But I think we played a lot of basketball, so we were a little bit more skilled. Not skilled, we were a little bit more, we understood the game more, right? These kids are way more skilled than we ever was. And that's a fact. That's true. But the IQ isn't there like what we had to bridge the gap. So in a game setting, we're going to look a little bit different than say you have all those skill sets, but you just don't know how to use them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So.
What were some of your proudest moments as a college athlete?
So I always wanted to play for Carolina, not just so I could play Duke, but I always wanted to play for Carolina. Like that was kind of, it's weird. I don't know. I always felt like most people were Carolina fans in Durham. But anyway, and some people were Duke fans. But like when I played against Duke in Cameron twice, I just felt like I did something. Because, we stood there, we watched Duke. I grew up near Daymar Court. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm 2 miles from Cameron Indoor. Yeah. I literally grew up playing ball outside 2 miles away from Cameron Indoor. Right. And so to play in there, to play J.J. Redick, Sheldon Williams, DeMarcus Nelson, played J.J. Redick, and he was a great player. To chase him around, go back and forth, shooting shots, going back and forth with him, that was everything to me because it seemed like it was so far, even though we were really close. We were 2 miles away, it seemed like it was so far away. And I think that was one of those things. And then we played Wake Forest. I used to watch, Randolph Childress, and then we played Wake Forest on Wake Forest floor. And we lost by 6 points, to Wake Forest. So I had a good game. My teammate, Drew Johnson, had a really good game, too. But to do those things is like validation. Like, like validation, like, yeah, we felt like it was far, far away from us, but it really was. It was close. We just didn't know it. And then obviously I had a buzzer beater my last year at Central. We beat Virginia State. They were number 3 in the nation. And we beat them on a buzzer. I hit a buzzer beater. We were down 12 like 3 minutes ago. We beat them. So, it's just like those things. And then you did it at home. My mom was there. My brother DJ was there. Sister Candace was there. It's just those little things like you just remember about celebrating and you think about how far you come, and so I thought that was a big time, way to sort of end everything.
That's a long career, and in the middle of it, I know it just goes by so quick.
Yeah.
How did your playing experience shape your coaching philosophy now? That's a big question, big time question. I felt like there was only 2 or 3 true coaches that I felt like connected with me. One was my AAU coach, Coach Brown. We were Red Storm Triangle Knights. My assistant coach at Central, Coach Johnson, pulled me to the side. You did that. Coach P at times did it here. But kids need that relationship with the coach. It just wasn't a thing back then, right? And so now I'm very aware that taking time to build that relationship with kids, something that I don't know, we never had, but I also think coaches then didn't know that we needed it. What led you into coaching after your playing days?
Just wanted to be around the game. We all stopped playing. We all become coaches because we can't play anymore. We can't do it like we used to, or we just don't have the avenue anymore. The ball stopped for me. But I got involved coaching 11-year-old girls in rec league basketball. We can go this way. And so that was in Marietta, Georgia, actually. And so, it felt so good to teach, them kids. And I was like, man, I could do this. It's a full circle moment when we talk about knowledge, wisdom, understanding. As a young man, somebody's always telling you need to know this. You need to know this. Why don't you know this? You know what I'm saying? Why don't you understand this? Why didn't you get this? So it's about having knowing the information. You need somebody to give you some information. You need the wisdom is your experiences. You got to have these bad experiences, these life experiences, whether they be good or bad. And then the understanding is the completion, right, to give it to somebody else.
How would you describe your growth as a leader and mentor over the years?
I think, and this is for even parents and other people who are connected to the youth, you have to be somebody who is very good at listening. I think you can't serve any kid without listening to them. I think that being somebody who can just that you can just listen to their experiences and share and not judge. I felt like before, when I was a little bit younger, it was always, why aren't you doing this? You know what I'm saying? Why aren't you doing this? And it's deeper than that, and so in having that grace, I think too many times in life we don't give each other grace. We don't give ourselves grace. So it's just like, that's a thing that a young man has to deal with, and I think young women too, and they deal with the same thing. But as a young man, because we're so driven by mission, we're so driven by carrying, we're supposed to carry everything, It's just like you tell the kids, one day we're in the weight room and we're like, we're not gonna do nothing but body weight workouts, and it's always like, hey, I tell them all the time, before you can carry somebody else's weight, you need to learn how to carry your own weight. You know what I'm saying? As a young man, you gotta learn how to, are you building yourself up first before you can take on somebody else's stuff? That was sort of how we bridged the gap. The coaches all pitched in, and all the other coaches from other sports. Coach Lenny Ran, God bless his soul. Coach Spell, like they all poured into us. Yeah. Even if we didn't play the sport or not. Yeah. There's always in the weight room talking shit to us.
What are the biggest lessons you've learned about player development?
There's no substitution for experience. All right, and so those experiences are, you need to get out and play. This generation of kid doesn't play, so they have problems with adaptation. And so when you don't play enough, you don't know how to adapt your game to a new situation. And so what happens is you spend a year, and this is the whole transfer thing. Parents don't understand this, but kids will spend almost 6 months to 9 months trying to adapt to a new situation. So they transfer, they spend 6 months, 9 months relearning things that they have to unlearn things first before they can learn new things.
What do you wish someone had told you before you became a coach?
It's not all about basketball. If you make it about basketball, it's gonna be the worst experience you probably have. It's about the kids. It's about, these things, the memories piece. Like you look at, you can go back and talk about these experiences I've had with, teammates. And so, a lot of good memories. And I just say tradition.
Yeah, when you think back in that era, and so you mentioned coaches that weren't even your coach, your sport coach. So obviously you looked at them more as like mentors or whatever.
Obviously.
How important were those mentors when you were growing up?
Well, for me, it was everything. I can remember. I still remember that. You don't remember this. I remember to this day. Just wasn't listening to my mom, right? And was trying to, just trying to do my own thing. And I remember she took me by your barbershop, and I just spent the whole day cleaning, sweeping, cleaning the shop, sweeping. We had that conversation about respecting your mother. Like, I never forget those kind of things.
That's dope.
So that's why you do it, right?
Yeah.
You do it because somebody did it for you, and somebody needed it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that was just everything to us. Especially, like, you really build by going through something. I always kind of connected to the weight room. Like, all those tough days, I was trying to figure out how to get strong and get better. That's coaches and mentors. I can still remember Coach Hackney sort of talking about life in the weight room.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't even there, I wasn't on the football team, I was still there.
Yeah.
So I still got those memories. Most of my friends played football, so I was just around.
What brought you back to Durham and Riverside specifically?
I think mission. Being close to family. My kids are younger now, so being around to see them. When I was in the JUCO, I was traveling 90 miles a day, back and forth, 3 hours a day. So I just didn't see that. Then also an opportunity just to be here and just be in this, like, knowing that I went to school here. I went to school here. I can look at the diploma. Hey, you see that? I went to school here. I'm not lying to you. And I know what it's like to be in your shoes, literally, to be in those seats. And so, I think that's what makes it a special. That's what makes it kind of special to me. As opposed to me coaching at another school. There's a passion behind it.
What emotions did you feel when you first walked back into that gym?
Just remembering just how much we put into this. Like, sneaking in the gym to get up shots. We weren't supposed to be. We were just in here getting up shots. I can just remember just all we cared about. You remember the album you were listening to when you on the bus. Just little things like that. I got the CD player and I'm listening to Jay-Z. Those kind of things. I'm listening to the Blueprint. I'm listening to Dynasty. Those. I can remember those albums. Like, you can connect albums with times in your life. And so for me, I started to go back into those bus rides and and just what it meant to be an athlete and how happy it was to just go out there and play, carefree. We spent most of our lives playing just for those moments. But then it also makes you realize that, life is short, but your basketball life is shorter. And so we got to do this right now. We got to do it right now, and we got to live in the moment.
Talk about that sense of urgency. How does it feel? How does the school itself? How does the school feel? I'm sure in some ways it feels the same. Some ways it feels different. What are those when you walk through the halls now? Like, in what ways does it feel the same, and in what ways does it feel different to you?
A funny story. My PE teacher is still teaching here, Coach Whitfield. He was my first, he was my first coach at the school. We taught gym, Coach Whitfield, and he's still here. And so there's still little wrinkles of what was here. There's a lot of teachers that's been here for 30 years. We've had at least, last year we had 3 teachers that have been here for 30 plus years. The CDC here, Ms. Brooks, she came here the year after I graduated. Another teacher, another entrepreneurship teacher, Ms. Brown, came here the year after I graduated. They're still here. This school definitely has a lot of strong roots. A lot of people who really believe in the school. And Just think it's just a place where kids can grow. It's just a mentality that we are, men of action. And we hope to be men of action. We hope to treat people with character, do things the right way. Hey, how you doing? You doing all right? Good. So we hope to do that. We hope to build that. And that's always been the mission. It's just mentality.
What do you see as the biggest challenges facing Riverside basketball right now?
Belief. The biggest thing is that we have to expect to win. We have to expect to prepare. We have to prepare like we're going to win. And our mindset, our mentality, and I think we talked about that earlier, just mentality. Our mentality is that we expect to win and that we're workers, and we always talk about, with the staff, like the culture of a culture of work, just loving the work that we do, loving the work, to work with the kids. So basketball has to be a 12-month-a-year program, and that's one thing I pride myself on. We offer that within every timeline, within the rules. We've offer every opportunity to build with a kid, and we all live close. We know most of us don't live far away from the school, so we're a phone call away. And so for us, it's just a culture of work, and that's what we want to build here, is a culture of work. And the work is what builds us. Life isn't always the good stuff. It's the good and the bad. That's what makes it life. The work is everything. And so we got to suffer together before we can win together.
Do you feel like they're as receptive to those type of relationships, or do you feel like they just want to be coached? And that's it?
I think you can't coach them without the relationship. Before we could just coach them and just keep it moving.
Yeah.
But now I think you just can't coach without a relationship. I was reading with one of my kids, one of my players has my class, and right before we went to lunch, I had him read a book, positive leadership book from Harold, what's the guy who does all the self-help, the business leader that did the books on leadership. So we were just talking about positivity. You know what I'm saying? When you're a leader, you can't be, there's always going to be negative around you. You know what I'm saying? And leadership is a lonely business. You know what I'm saying? And so, and so can you, as a leader of men, be the spark when everything around you is like negative, and so I think that's something, and we were just talking about leadership with him, but, that goes beyond just now. Yeah. That's gonna stick with him when he have a son, when he have a daughter, when he leaves his own family. So we try to talk with them with that in mind.
What does it mean to you to lead young men from the same community that you came from?
Same word, mission. Feel like it's duty. Feel like it's honorable. We as people always have to draw the line in the sand. This is what we're gonna stand on. For us, for some of us, it's business. For some of us, it's kids. For some of us, it's teaching. For some of us, whatever it is. But for me, I've drawn the line of sand and said, I'm going to build up young men to be better than what we were, or at least that's a mission. Somebody from here has to go farther than what I did. I'm still waiting on a new generation of kid to play for Duke. That's from Durham. To play for Carolina. That's from Durham. Well, we had David, Noel, but if that's the mission, that's what we want. We want to continue to have that.
How important is it for these kids to see someone who grew up where they're growing up, leading them now?
I think it's everything. I think that's really how we learn. because as young men and women, we're like, why are you here? Have you done it? You know, that's the thing. But that's just the thing that you say when you're young is but you're here. You haven't gone someplace. And so I think that they need to know, they need people who've had that experience. It goes into that knowledge, wisdom, understanding. You know, it's just, they need to have people who have that experience. They need to have people who go in and hey, I've done this. You can see this, I've done this. And I think that builds that trust. And I also think that gives them something to look at and say, hey, I've done it. I've done it before.
What's been the community's reaction to your return?
I thought it's been great. You know, very few people move far. A lot of people stay in areas, what I'm trying to say. A lot of people stay. And so it's good to see people I went to school with, their kids are in school. It's good to see people that I go to school with that. I have one of my classmates from elementary school, his twin children go to the school. I'm teaching one, you know, so it's like, you look just like your dad, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so it's good to see, that. I always felt like Durham is a true hometown, you know, and a true place where people have pride in it. And so we need to have people who are in the buildings, in these schools, that know what that pride looked like back then. You know, they know what needs to happen in order to move people forward. And the kids need it. I was just meeting with a kid about getting a CDL and just talking about careers, you know what I mean? And he's not an athlete, you know. And so my thing is that I can't just care about the athletes. I gotta care about the kids that are in the class too. They gotta have somebody to look at too. And so, but it's a heavy lift.
What legacy do you hope your return inspires?
Well, I hope it's a return to pride in the Shield. Us versus them. I hope it returns to us versus them. That it's all about us building up the Shield, and the Shield means something. And we have to play for this. We have to play for this in order to build up self, to do for others. We have to serve, and so we have to be in the business of serving each other. And so I think we're in the business of serving each other, doing stuff without expecting anything in return builds character. And I think that basketball character is what we talk about with the work. It's just the character of work, the grind. We have to love this. We have to love this grind. And I think that's what makes us people.
What are your short-term and long-term goals for the program?
Okay. I'll start with the long-term goal. I feel like the long-term goal, we hope to be a flagship basketball program in the state of North Carolina. That's something that I've written on every presentation I've done to the coach, to the kids, to the parents. My hope is to be a flagship basketball program in the state of North Carolina. That strategy, we hope to just be an environment where we encourage and we have knowledgeable coaches that love the game and love to share and love to teach the game. You know, and those tactics, you know, it's just all our work, just being people who are guided by, you know, there's certain principles in basketball that we lead with most of our development, our teaching, our role clarity, playmaking, spacing, defensive versatility, rebounding. We have to focus on those four things. We have to focus on building in those four areas and building up basketball players in those four areas. We hope that it starts with the JV. We just hired a really good JV coach, Coach Hips, that was at Neal, and he's a winner. And so we hope to build that through JV and that funnel that into the varsity. In the short term, we hope that we provide a brand of basketball that fans like. They can see the selflessness in each kid. They can see the fight, the love for each other in each kid. They can see the love that we have for the kids and how we coach them. And the parents can see that in hopefully in how those conversations they're having at home with their kids about what we do and who we are. And that, in short, we're not carrying ourselves like we've done anything. And I think that's what makes you hard worker, when you carry yourself like you haven't done anything.
What does a resurgence mean to you in the context of Riverside basketball?
Just the return of how do people make you feel when they see this? Like, what do you feel when you see this and you think about Riverside basketball? I think that's everything to the program. And it starts with how you care about it. Talk to the players. It's like, what do you feel when you see that? You know, I know what I feel, you know, but I played here. You know, I came back. I've chosen to come back here. I know what it means to me, but what does it mean to you? You know, and I just think that's what builds a team, is that we have to go through something. And once we get out of that, what is going to be our line what are we going to draw a line of sand with as a team? Is it about wins and losses? Sometimes in life it is. You know, at some point, there's about wins and losses. But for now, we're learning how to take our lumps, but we're learning how to build with each other first. But we have to be this before we can start hitting things, knocking things out. We got to be this way. And so I think that's what I hope to build with each other. Hope that they build with each other. And so I think that's just the mission. Every year but my senior year, we either won the conference or we won the conference tournament. It's either one or the other.
Yeah, it's tough.
It was either one or the other.
Yeah.
And so we made the playoffs every year.
I'm looking at a plaque here on your wall where it says Riverside High School men's basketball most valuable player presented to Chris Mayshack. To go from that to now be building a program and at a school where academics is such a mainstay, strong academics is such a mainstay.
Right.
How do academics factor into your team's culture?
To me, it's another pathway to build as a young man. You know, we want, and we talked about mastery. I think education is another pathway. And it's not that everybody's going to be PhD. Everybody's not going to be masters, executive leader. I just think it's another bucket to fill up as a young person. You can fill up your athletic cup with working hard, investing in yourself. But how you invest in, you have to figure out other ways to invest in your mind, you know, and that's exposing yourself to new things, not even beyond school, reading. One thing that I want kids to always do is read. Like you guys have to read. And so that's something that, for me, education is just making sure that you fill up every bucket you can. And I think when I was a JUCO coach, it was about recommitting yourself to filling up that bucket. Right? When you're in high school now, it's about making sure the importance of getting that bucket, filling up that bucket. When you get to college, it's going to be less about filling up the bucket in education, but more about filling up the bucket in networking. It's going to be filling up that bucket, your personal self skills. And so I just think in this day and age, education is more, it is the content, but it's also building up the person, the soft skills.
There's so many things changing now. Like, obviously, the kids today aren't the kids of yesterday.
Right.
And not in a good or a bad way, just different.
Right.
Basketball is not the same basketball.
Right.
Today.
Right.
How do you balance tradition and innovation within your program?
Well, I think that being a former college coach, you're already sort of exposed to some of those nuances of basketball. It was funny when I was talking to the AD and the principal about the job. You know, I gave an example of we want to play inside out, right? We've heard that our whole lives. You got to play inside out. Don't shoot a three until that ball go in the post. Well, we're still playing inside out to this day, but now we just don't have the post. Now it's just not the emphasis on being a post player. You drive into the paint. That's inside out. So the game has opened up. You know, we opened up the game in a different way. Now people aren't staying in the paint. It used to be when I was growing up, you had to be athletic to go around everybody in the paint. And if you weren't that athlete, you know, you weren't like a high-level prospect. So, but now you don't have to be, you know, because we're going to play inside out another way. And so whether it be playing inside out is still the pathway to winning basketball games. It's just now we have to do it through driving. Now we do it through cutting, as opposed to back then it was post play. It was systematic, and we also have systematic. We also have to be systematic here. That's how kids learn, through systems. They learn skill level through skin. They learn mastery through skills, through systems. But we also have to have an element of freelance at times that is, you know, such a part of these kids' spirit nowadays. And so it's having a little bit of freedom, but the discipline still needs to be there before we can get to the freedom, right? I think you titled it appropriately. It's the forgotten about quadrant, you know, of the city, and you know, just want to be one of those people that give kids in this city or in this part of town, and kids all over the city too, but kids in this city, in this part of town, just something to look at and say, hey, this is how basketball should be. And it's somebody here just like you. I sat in them chairs. I went to school, I graduated from here.
Final question. What message do you want your players to hear every day when they walk into this gym?
Believe. I think that so much of the kids have it hard these days because they're exposed to so many things that are negative. It almost makes them hard to believe in self. There's so many, they're pulled in so many different directions. They don't know what to believe, right? They don't even know if they can believe in them, trust themselves or believe in themselves. And so it's a hope that they just believe that everything is possible. And you have to follow that up with the work. And it starts with taking a big step forward, you know, and that's just the challenge, is to take a big step forward and to pass the test. I always say pass the test is one of the biggest things too, because in life, I always say every individual has their own test to pass. And I think that they get into an age where they're figuring out, they keep failing the test. They're trying to figure out how to circumvent the test. The test is going to come around. Whether you transfer to said school to another school, you're still going to have the same test. And so for me, it's sticking it out, really having that belief in themselves. And the belief comes from the work. The confidence comes from the work. And so if you're working on yourself as a person, you keep believing, things are automatically, they're going to start turning in the direction it's supposed to go in. And then the next thing is that whatever's on your heart and on your mind have to match. And I don't know if you're going to get too far in life when these two things aren't aligned. And so once those two things, those two major systems in your body are aligned, guide sort of starts turning you in the right direction that you should be going into. So.